Yeah, good Mayid. We saw yesterday, we worked at Daf Pei. We saw yesterday's Daf that to bring the Bikurim from inferior fruits, according to Ula, would not be acceptable. It would not be acceptable. We brought a brisa in where he said that if you bring it from an utzitz for nakov, or from an utzitz, a flower pot, or a gag, or a churva, that it would be okay, right? We answered that one teretz we gave that was speaking about a mincha. That wasn't speaking about bikurim. But bikurim, it would not be okay. Okay, the Gemara now is going to go back to that brisa and analyze those words. So we're starting from Pei Dalet Amid Beis. We started from Pei. Oh, who the is he back? Who the Kerber? Okay, so we're starting from Pei Dalet Amid Beis. With Pei Dalet Amid Beis, we're a few lines up. But says the Gemara. Tani Chada. Shebegag ushebechurva ushebeatzis shebesfina. If bikurim that grows in these areas, maybe you may bring bikurim v'kaire and read the parsha of Rami David Avi. In bikurim, there's different halachas. You can bring, you don't bring it all, or you do bring and you don't read. You bring and ultimately the highest madrega is bringing and reading the parsha. V'tanya idach maybe v'enekaira. So in either case, you're bringing it. Good. In either case, you're bringing it. The question is whether you read or not, but there's no question about bringing it. Remember, what did Ula say? And what did Rabbi Yochanan say? What did Reish Lakish? So Rabbi Yochanan and Ula were both of the same ilk. They both said you can't bring. And Reish Lakish said you could. Right? That was the machlokes we ended up with, machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. The Bishlam Reish Lakish, Gag agag le kasha, hog begag de ma'ara, hog begag de bias. A gag that's in ma'ara, that's in a cave, is made. It's made of earth, and therefore you can bring it and read. A gag in bias, right? Since that's not the norm, so you can bring and not read. It's not quality crop, but you could bring it. Churva lekasha, kan bechurva avuda, a, a churva that was avuda, that was worked, that you could bring and read. Kan bechurva she'ena avuda, that you can bring but you can't read. Utzis like kasha, one flower pot on another. Kam bin kuva. It was an utzah that was knokov, so it's being yoinik from Eretz Yisrael directly. You will be able to bring the bikurim and read. Kan b'shein in kuva, and where can you bring and not read? It's ein in kuva, so it's not getting nurtured directly from Eretz Yisrael. Svina like kasha. Kam b'svina shalei. Kam b'svina shel cheres. A svina made of wood you bring but do not read. Made of cheres. Cheres has a lachawad of earth, and there you would be able to bring it and read. This is Rashi's pshat. There's a very long thesis that disagrees, but that's Rashi's pshat. So according to Rabbi Shlakish, we have what? We have a pshat. El Rabbi Yochanan kasha, like Rabbi Yochanan, who says that you can't bring it all, it's fair, because both brises that we just mentioned, you can bring the Bikurim, and the Machlokes was reading or not. But L'Kuli Alma, you could bring it. Rabbi Yochanan says you can't bring it all. Says the Gemara Tanaihi, it's Machlokes Tanaim, and Rabbi Yochanan has a Tana that he goes according to. The Tanya, Shebegagu Shebechurva Mevi V'Koira, Shebe'atzis Shebesvina Eina Mevi Kol Ikar, you cannot bring what? At all. You can't bring it all. So that Tana would be the Tana of the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Right? Says Rashi Tanoihi. The Ikatana the Amar Shed. I'm going with the Mefarish because like it's larger letters. The Ikatana the Amar Shed Resfina Eina Mevi. Vuadin LeTamarim Shebaharim Mishbamakim. That the same would apply to the Tamarim of the mountains and the valleys, which Rabbi Yochanan says that you can't bring. In other words, that's the Tana. First come to answer up. Rabbi Yochanan said his din by the Chorim and the Amakim. This is speaking about what? It's speaking about Atzis and Sfina. So it goes, it would be the same Madrega. That it's inferior, and therefore you can't bring it at all. Before we said all the grain only comes from the choices. All the grain only comes from the choices. And we mentioned what was the choicest grains. A place was called Machnis, Vizitcha, and they were the alphas. These were the number one places. Imrila, this is a fascinating Gemara. Imri lo yochonu umamre l'Moshe. Now, this is the answer to a great trivia question in the Torah Ladas. What were the names of the Chartumei Mitzrayim? What were the names of the Kishuf Machas? We say, Kenny said, the Kishuf Machas in Mitzrayim. What are the Kishuf Machas? That is Yechona Umamre, guys. It's a classic. Only place in Shas it appears. The name Yechona Umamre. These were the Kishuf Machas of Mitzrayim. These were the magicians. They said to Moshe, Teven ata machnes le'aparoyim, le'afroyim, aparoyim, I think the way you pronounce it. You're bringing Teven le'aparoyim, amalahu Moshe, Amri inshi lamasa Yerako yarka shakal, to a place of what? Of Yerakos, you bring Yerakos. So the Mefarish brings this, they said a leitzonistic thing, and he answered them a foolish thing. They said, you're bringing your kishuf to Mitzrayim. This is the place of kishuf. Like it's like bringing, what was that? Coals to, you know, I'm talking about coals to. Tell me,
selling ice to the Eskimos.
No. Coals to.
Coals to Newcastle. Coals to Newcastle.
That is, thank you. They're bringing coals to Newcastle. So Moshe gave them this answer. That you want to bring a crop of what you want to bring a crop of Yerakos. You go to a place where they sell Yerakos. So therefore, I'm bringing my crop to you. That was basically a leitzonistic answer that Moshe gave them. Marsha is a very interesting pshat. I'll share it with you. Okay, this is Marsha in Chedushi Agadais right here in the daf. Okay, to understand the Marsha. There's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu. It's in Chav Gimel, pasuk Chav Ches. It says, "Hanavi asher itay chaloim yisapeh chaloim, va'asher devari itay, va'asher devari itay yidaber devari." The patach is the navi asher itay, the navi sheker, right? That has these chaloimos yisapeh chaloim. You can tell it tells over his dreams. But I speak to you. Yidaber Dvar Yemes, you're speaking the truth. Malet Teven es Habor Num Hashem. Malet Teven es Habor Num Hashem. Rashi says, Malet Teven, Lebor. What's the Indian of Sheka to Emes? Teven is considered Sheka to Bor, which is considered Emes. Now let's begin the Marsha. Pirish Rashi, Amalei Dvari Leitzanis. He told him, Moshe told him Dvari Leitzanis. V'heishiv lehem binyanoi. Adkam Shoinoi. That's the way he answered them. V'nir lefarish hamashal api amikra hanavi. The mikra pasuk in Yecheskel in Yemiyahu. Hanavi asher itoi chaloim v'asher yidaber, and the one that I speak to yidaber emes. Malat teven es habar. Kapirish Rashi sham malat sheker es emes. So in other words, teven is sheker and bar, in the produce is emes. V'hashta amalei teven atamachnis. What are you the Mitzrayim? What are Yochanan and Mamre saying to Moshe? Teven atamachnis ki Moshe anu oiskim kan bekishuv v'dav sheker ki teven azeh kach atam es asek bekach. In other words, it's all an illusion. It's all sheker. So you're bringing this teven, you're bringing this sheker to Mitzrayim. V'heishiv lehem, and Moshe answered them, Mashal acher, lemasa Yeraka shakal, the hayiraka shemevi in the shuk limchar vade deina shavin, the yesh the grua v'yesh chashiv. There's good and there's bad. V'im yarok shalachem hu dav sheker, and if your stuff is sheker, v'kishuf v'eina shava klum, loy kein yerek shali. Not my yerakas is different. Shu chashiv ki inyan shali hu davar amiti, because mine is the truth. The chashiv me'iti yisbarach v'kala haven. So therefore, they're telling, like, you're bringing some teven, you bring some sheker to Mitzrayim, and Moshe says to them, you know what? You have Yerakos that are somehow good. My Yerakos, they're the truth. They're like bar. They're mamish the truth. That's a different explanation I found fascinating through this dialogue between the two. But again, for the sake of the blog, Yechona and Mamre, those were the kishuf machas of Mitzrayim. They're found, not commonly found. Okay, Ein Meviin loy miveis hazvalim, right? You cannot bring mives hazvalim. You can't bring from a sada that was you use fertilizer. You use the poop to go ahead and fertilize because it's according to Rashi, it gets into the fruit, into the produce. V'lo mives hashlachim, not from a field that was needed irrigation by hand. V'lo mives ha'ilon, not one that has trees, because this all weakens the crop. The trees weaken the crop. Then heavy kosher. If you bring it b'diavad, it's kosher. How would they go ahead and again, you bringing the Omer, what would they do? So Nara Shana Rishina, they leave the field fallow. They would plow the field and then not plant. Ubeshana Shnia, in the second year, Zora they would plant. The Gemara is going to ask, do they have to plow the second year or not? And they would go ahead, and they would, for 70 days before Pesach, they would plant. This is speaking about the barley. Maruba, and as a result of leaving it fallow the first year after plowing it, it produced a tremendous crop. Kate said Baidik. How would the gizber go ahead and be Baidik if it's good quality? Hagizber machnas yaday l'taychan, into the ground crop. Olaba avak, if avak came, if dust went ahead and adhered to his hand, psula, ad sheyinapin, until you went ahead and you sifted it again. V'misliya, and if it becomes wormy, then psula. So now the Gemara is going to go through the process of how would they grow the crop. Ketzadaisa, Nara Shana Rishina, they plow and leave the field fallow the first year. Iboilahu, Hachi Kamar, Nara Shana Rishina, they would leave the field after being plowed, they would leave it fallow the first year. Ushnia Nara Vizaira, and the second year they would leave it fallow and plant. Idilma Nara Shana Rishina, Ushnia Zaira Beloy Nara. So in other words, would they plow in the second year or not, fellas? That's the question. The first year plowing and not planting. The second year, there's two ways to learn. They plowed and planted, or they just planted without plowing. Tashma, the Tanya. Rabbi Yossi. Afchite kerzayim kfar achim, right? There would be, you can bring the Omer from them. Ilmali smuchas to Shalayim, haimeviyim mehem. If they were close to Shalayim, they would bring from them. Remember, guys, we spoke about they should bring the Omer from the closest place. They bring the Omer from fields that were in the southern, that had a south sun. The sun would go ahead and shine in the south, and they were plowed for the purpose of that. It seems at this time of the year, fellas, the sun would rise in the east, the southeast, and it would set in the southwest. So if the field was in the south, it was getting sun the whole day. It was coming this way, right? So it was getting sun the whole day, going from southeast to southwest. So it was getting sun the whole day, and therefore that would go ahead and create a ripe, very, very, geschmacka crop. Ketzadaisa, what would you do? And again, we're coming to answer the question, what did you do in the second year? Nora Shana Rishina, they would plow and leave fallow the first year. Ushnia Chayrish, they would plow. Vishoina, and they would repeat it. So the Chayrish guys, we answered the question, right? They plowed. It's interesting. They went from the lashon of Nora to Chayrish. They both mean plowing. Nora means fallow. I guess Chayrish means plowing and planting. V'Zoyra kaim lePesach shivim yoyim k'dei shtei smucha lechama, that it should be next to the power of the sun. V'yoysa kana zeres, the stalk would be a zeres high. Ushiboles rasayim, and the gvul at the top would be the size of two zeres. V'koitzer u'mayme v'dosh v'zoyra u'boyre v'toichin u'raked u'mevi etzel nizgizbar. They give the machnas yada l'toichai imolsa ba'avak oimaloi chazav v'nefna. Go put it back and sift again. Shnia, Mishum Reb Nasanaimer, Gizbar Soch Yodai Shem, and he put semen on his hands. Umachnas the Sleicha Yad Shemayla Kol Afka, and as he himself would go ahead putting oil on his hands, he'd remove all the dust. Ketani Mihas, the bottom line of a nice brisa, what do we need? Ketani Mihas, Chayrish V'Shaina, that what? They would go ahead and plow. What was that question? Do you plow in the second year? Clearly you are plowing in the second year. Clearly, you are plowing the second year. Not only are you plowing in the second year, it's mashma you're plowing it for a second time. Chorish v'shoina. According to your reasoning that you want to say the Mishnah that we're explaining, a Mishnah that's speaking, we're in the last line of Nasan and Pei Heyam and Aleph. You want to say that the Mishnah is speaking in a scenario where you plowed the second year. How can you bring a raya from this brisa? This brisa says not only did they plow the second year, they repeated it. Our Mishnah didn't say you repeated it. Our Mishnah just said Nara. It didn't say repeating. Like Katani Shana, Amid Beis. Brisa Katani Shana, but the Brisa learned you repeat the process. Says the Gemara Hole Kasha, Kan Be'avuda, right? Kan Be'avuda. You could say one is speaking that a field that was previously worked, and therefore you wouldn't have to go ahead and plow it a second time. And Kan, where it was not Avuda, and Kan where it was not avuda, it wasn't worked a second, it wasn't worked, and therefore you had to plow a what a second time. So our Mishnah is speaking about one that was worked before, and therefore you don't have to repeat it. But the brisa that you had to repeat it wasn't worked yet. The kamashein avuda, the chayra, right? So the chayra it is a raya, but the Gemara doesn't know. Okay, the question was Nasin, is that in the process of the omer, it says how do you get the best crop? It says you would plow a field and leave it empty, and the second year you would plant. The question is, do you plow before that planting or not? It appears over here from this price, so you would. But this price is not a good raya because the price says not only would you plow, but you plow again a second time. So we want to answer, Amish, that's and say you have to plow a second time is speaking because already was previously worked. But you would need plowing. And the one that said in the price that you need a double plowing wasn't worked at all. But based upon this, you would need a plowing in the second year. The question is whether you need one or two. According to our Mishnah, you need one. The Gemara is not accepting that. It seems like you fetch the teretz because the Gemara says, "My Haviyallah." What's the bottom line? Exactly what did you do? Exactly what did they do when? Okay, so now this is going to tell us what they did. My Haviyallah, the bottom line, Tashma de Tanya. Near Chetzia, in the second year, they would near Chetzia v'Zoyre Chetzia. And they would plant half near Chetzia v'Zayra Chetzia, and they would leave a part, and then they would go ahead and plant a second time. So they would plow half the field and plant half the field, and afterwards, right, they would do the opposite. They're near Chetzia v'Zayra Chetzia. They would go ahead and leave fallow the place that was plowed, and plant the place that was plowed the previous year. So they are plowing. They're plowing half the field, guys. They're plowing half the field, but they're not planting simultaneously 2 years in a row, because that's makish the koyach of the karka. So you would go ahead, plow, plant, and the next year plant where they plowed the previous year, and plow where they planted the previous year. They would go ahead in reverse. Only the Sodes that were in the south, Sheberetz Yisrael, Shebehen Chama Zerachas, Ubehem Chama Shakas. Again, they would go southeast to southwest, and it would be the whole day would be in the south side. Tanya Nami Hachi Abishol Oime, Oime Hoyabo mit Bikas Beis Makla. It came from a place called Bikas Beis Makla, Kibas Gimel Sayin, and the amount they brought was Gimel Sayin. We know this already. Haisa, we saw the Midjuremes Haisa. It was a south field. Ubo Chamazarachas Umemena Chamashakas. Near Chetzi v'Zarech Chetzia, near Chetzi v'Zarech Chetzia. Beautiful. Reb Chilki Bar Tuvi Habilei Karna Da'ara. He had a piece of land near Chetzi v'Zarech Chetzia. He used that process of plowing and leaving fallow and planting half. Near Chetzi v'Zarech Chetzia. The next year he did the opposite. The Avda Al Chad Tarin and produced double the amount. Double the amount that would have produced if you would have left it completely fallow. And the quality was so good, they would go ahead and be able to sell it for chite l'samida, which would be used for what? For menachos. If it became wormy, it became puzzle. Tanarabanan, soilish esliya ruba psula, a soilus that was hisliya ruba, that the majority was rubit's puzzle. The chitin, that's the soilus. Chitin, the wheat itself, shesliya ruban psulis. Boy Rav Yirmiyah, b'roiv chita, b'roiv sa'a. Look at the gears on the side, fellas. If you have an old Gemara, it's the gears on the side. If you have a new Gemara, there's probably some number there, and sending it to the Messiah Hashas. There's probably some letter there that's sending to the Messiah Hashas. Pirish she'ena psulim ella hisliya roiv kol chita v'chita Alvakishasliya miyat techita, afapishasliya roiv sa muta. In other words, if individually the roiv of the saw was wormy, but individually the chita, you looked at each one, they weren't. So you have a bunch of wormy chita, but it was only a miyat of worm on the chita, but altogether it was a wormy roiv. Or idilma afil kishesliya miuta dechalchita asar kishu roiv sa mehamutulayim b'miyot kain kasav v'kesef Mishnah Sham v'Rambam. So the shaila would be the way they're learning pshat, guys, is the following: if you have the minority of the chita is good, is wormy, but the rest is good, even though if you put all them together, you have roiv of the sa. Or no, do we say that it's not good once you have a miyat, even if you have a miyat on the right, even if you have a miyat on each one, it's asa since roiv sa. Do you go after in other words, guys, do you go after the wheat or do you go after the measurement? Are you going after the wheat or are you going after the sa, the measurement of the wheat? Here the shayla, guys. Are you going after the wheat itself, or are you going after the roiv? That's the way you're learning on the side. So, Rav Yomi, roiv chita or roiv sa? Now that makes sense, guys. Good. Roiv chita or roiv sa, right? Do you look at individually the chita, and if it's a miyat of the chita, it's okay? Or no, if the individual of the chita is a miyat, but it adds up to roiv sa, then not. The Gemara says teku. Boy Rava, hekdesha and mao sheyilakeh. If you magdish this stuff, you want the inferior stuff, you're going to get malchus. We said that balmum, if you magdish balmum, you get 5 malchus. Gemara says. So over here, if you want to know if you magdish this inferior stuff, would you get malchus? Right? What's the shot? Balmum mishum balmum. Keeping the puzzle kill balmum. Dami. Idilma ain balmum elva behema teku. Maybe balmum is not by things that grow. Maybe it's only by an animal, but things that grow, you would not say that. Tan Hassan. Kolates shenimsa by talas. Any eights be speaking by the eights of them of the asim is beach, right? Kolates shenimsa by talas puzzle lugabim is beach. Amashmul leshanu elalach. That's only if it's moist. Aval yavesh. If it's yavesh, you can go ahead and fetch it out and scrape it out the kasha. Boy Rabbi, if you magdish this poor wood, maushi yalakalav mishum balmum, keeping the puzzle kabamum dami yadilma ain balmum el behema, and the Gemara says what on that teku. The Gemara says on that teku. Just 1 second. I just remembered a Ramban on Chumash on this Gemara. One of the things that we try to say every day is the Akedah. Okay, so what happens? He goes ahead. He saddles up his donkey. And Avram Avinu went himself and chopped the wood. Avram has servants. Why is he chopping the wood? Says the Ramban, to check for worms. This Gemara, guys, the Ramban says it's based upon this Gemara. That's the reason Avram Avinu himself chopped the wood, to make sure that it wasn't wormy. So, and Ramban quotes this Gemara here in Menachos. Okay, there's an incident in Navi where Amnon is the half brother to Avshalom, and Avshalom has a full sister Tamar. Amnon is Ma'anis Tamar Leilenu, and Avshalom kills him, and he runs away to the grandfather. And David HaMelech is missing him very much over a period of time. And Yoav, David's general, and his nephew, and I guess the cousin to Avshalom, wants to go ahead and make peace between the two of them. So he hires a woman from Tekoya to come and say a mashal. And based upon that mashal, it's going to bring Avshalom back. Okay, that's the background. Tekoya is Alfin L'Shemen. If you want to get the Shemen, the best Shemen comes to a place called Tekoya. Abba Sholoimer, Shni'ala is the second to best to to Tekoya is Regev she'evar yardain. It's Regev and Evar yardain. Kol ratzos like sheres. Every place is kasha. Ela shemeviin. Ela mikan hayimeviin. Any place you could bring the shemen for the menachos, for the menorah was good, but this is the best they would bring from Tekoya, which was in the chelik of Asher, or from this place Regev, even though it was in Evar yardain. Again, is like similar to the previous Mishnah. You cannot bring shemen for a place that was fertilized with animal dung because it's going to give it a bad odor. That's irrigated by man because it's inferior quality. Nor if it grows between trees. So the trees is going to take away the unica from the if you planted. This is speaking about an olive tree. So if you planted something between the olive tree, it's going to take away from the nutrients of the olive tree, so you won't be able to bring it from there. It's not good quality. However, heavy ksher, if you would bring from them, it would be kosher. B'di'eved. Emevian an pikatoin, right? That's an olive that has not been ripened totally. From heavy kosher. Emevian min hagagarin shenoshu b'mayim, from the olives that was soaked in water. Not pickled olives. Not cooked olives. Heavy puzzle. Those of you bring even by the eved would be puzzle. Those would be puzzle. I feel it by the eved. It says Vayishlach Yoav to Koah, and Yoav wants a woman to come to David for psak, and he sends to Tekoya. Vayikach misham isha chachama, and they brought from there an isha chachama. Ma'ishna Tekoya. Rabbi Yochanan mitoyshe regilim b'shem and zayis chachma b'tzuyim behen. Since they were ragel b'shem and zayis, chachma is found among them. It's interesting, guys. We say olives are kosher l'shikha. Olives, the Gemara in Harya says it's kosher l'shikha, right? I forgot the daf. Anyway, but it's less daf. But the olive oil is good. Olive oil is good. You see that from over here. So they proved the isha Tekoya because the good quality oil came. So I bring that. Tan Rabbanan. But it says by Asher, but Toivel b'Shem and Ragli. And so it's a bracha. It says the Toivel Moshe Rabbeinu. It says the Toivel b'Shem and Ragli. It's a chelko shel Asher. Shem Moshech Shemen kim ayin. That Shemen would go ahead and be Moshech like a ma'ayin, like a fountain. Amru pamachas nitzruch lemanshi lutkia b'Shemen. They needed, men of Lutkia needed Shemen. Saminu lehem plumustos. They went ahead and got a plumustos, is some type of shliach, to go ahead and engage in transaction, to go ahead and procure this olives. Amruloi lech v'havel lanu shemen b'meya riboy halchi v'shalayim amruloi lech litzor halach litzor amruloi lech legosh chalav halach legosh chalav amruloi lech etzel ploini. Go to Ploini l'sadeh, and if you look at the test in the Shita, halach lebeisai, he went to the person's house, matsu, he didn't find him. Amullah, they told this individual, this guy was a guy. Harihu b'sadeh, he's in the field, right? Halach matsu, he went to the field and he found this individual in the field, and umatsu shahaya Isaac tachas. He's weeding and hoeing underneath it. He's this guy. This guy's working shvera arbit, and he has to provide. Guys, they wanted Meya Ribuy. That's 100 times 10,000. We call that a million. Right? 100 times 10,000 is a million. So they needed a million amount of shemen. So, and this guy's working underneath the tree. So Amrullah, so he said to him, Yesh lecha shemen b'meya riboy shani tzarich Amrullah himtin li ad shevesayim malachti. Wait till I finish. Himtin li shem malachti. He waited. The guy waited. The achash shesayim malachti hifshel keil lachayrav. The man who was working took the kelim and put his on his back. V'hayu mesakel, and he was busy going ahead and removing the stones from the road. Ubaba derech. Right? This guy's talking to himself, not a guy. Right? In other words, they made a joke sending me to this guy. He's working underneath the tree like an eved. He's busy cleaning up the road. This is the guy they sent that I should get 1 million mana worth of 1 million. I don't know what the how much oil, but 1 million something of oil. Kim Shagil Ira, he got to the city. Haitzila Shivchasai, the Shivcha man came out and brought a kumkum shalchamim, a pitcher of hot water. Varachetz bayadav, he washed his hands, raglav and his feet. Haitzila Safshel Shel Zahav, right? She brought out a basin of gold, Malaya Shemen, full of oil, V'tavel bayadav raglav, he was tayv on the other rav, the Kaimash Shenemar, V'tavel Shemen raglai. L'achla sha'ach v'shasu, after they ate and drank, Modern like Shemen b'meya ribo. He went ahead and he gave him 1 million mana worth of Shemen. I'm like klumat tzarich liyaisa. The guy said, "You need any more?" He gave him 1 million, and he says, "You need." Well, by the way, you need any more? So I'm like, the guy said, "Hein, elashein lidam. I don't got any money." So I'm like, "Imata raitzel likach, take it. V'kach v'ani elech imcha. I'll go with you. V'yatel damav." In other words, I'll sell you not only the 1 million worth, but I'll even add Madalei Shemen Bishmoina Eser Riboy. So in other words, that's 18 times 10,000, 180,000. They say about this person, he did not leave any Leisus, Leiperev, Leigomov, Leichamar, Beretz Yisrael, Sheisachai. He rented every teamster's truck, everything, every animal that could possibly go ahead and bear this burden of all this stuff. He rented out. Fascinating. They came out to praise this guy. Not only, man, he did the job. So Amalahem, the guy said, Loili Kelsuni, don't place me. El Ba'imi, the one who came with me. Shemadli Shemen B'meya Riboy. He measured out 1 million. V'hari Noisha me, and he lent me another B'shmeina Asa Riboy, another L'kai 180,000. L'kai Mashenemar Yesh Mis Aser Ve'en Kol. There's a person who appears rich. Guys, in the Pasuk in Mishlei, there's a person who appears rich. He appears like he's a very, very wealthy guy, but really, Erhat Garnish, he has nothing. Misroishesh, he looks like a rash, guys. He looks like a pauper for Hain Rav, and he's got a lot of money. They tell stories about. I'll tell you a story, guys. I'll tell you a story. There was this, my brother told me the story. My brother Zalman is mechutanim with Morty Shron, Reuven Shron's son. And there was a meeting for kids who were at-risk kids, or I don't know exactly kids who are working. And one of the kids, and Reuven Shron came to the wedding, came to this meeting. And anyway, they said that, open for questions. And one kid said to Ruby Shron, how come you don't dress so, and you drive a very regular car? That's what he said to him. And what he told him, Morty Shron never heard from his father. And he told him the following. He goes, I was learning in the Mir, and my Rebbe was Rav Shmuel Brudny, Zeichat Tzadik L'Vracha, Rav Shmuel Brudny. And I had a car, and I was taking him home. I don't know what he said to him, but Ruby must have said to him something about buying a nicer car. I don't recall exactly, but Rav Shmuel Zatzal told him to stop the car. And he told him the following Gemara, and we learned this Gemara. He said in the base of Migdash, there was a flute, and they say that flute was made out of wood, and it was from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. And it had a beautiful, beautiful coil to it. And they went ahead and they covered it with gold. And when they covered it with gold, it didn't work so well. Rav Shmuel told Ruby Shron, not everything covered with gold, not everything that looks so good is so good. Sometimes. I think that's Geschmack of Pshat, guys, right? Yes, Mishasha Ve'ein Kol. People look rich and they have nothing. People live among their means, right? People their credit card is exploding. And then, Misraishis, the person who pays the Rosh is nothing. V'hoin Rav. And guess what? Afar Meg. He has everything. That's the story.